I'm an alcoholic. My name is Steve. And I do have experience with these 2 steps that we read about, and all the steps that are laid out in that book, principles. Try to practice all the principles daily. Some days are better than others. I still have a couple of amends left to make, financial, and as I mentioned, practicing all the steps, the principles of these steps in my life on a daily basis. A design for living. A design for living. That's what I found these steps to be. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous with a desire to do any steps. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because the court of Massachusetts said that you're going to go to 3 AA meetings a week until such and such a time. And so I came to 3 AA meetings a week until, I kept coming to AA meetings after that such and such a time. Why? Because what I've heard in the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous, people like yourselves that helped me to see that I wasn't the only one. So identifying, even though I'm sure I did a lot of comparing, I was identifying enough to know that this was a good place and that I was with people like me. And that was very freeing to me to realize I'm not the only one who thought like I did, drank like I did, felt like I did some of the things like I did. And that was a very freeing thing. So the identification process and what Bill and Bob and the gang started with helping one alcoholic, helping another, and telling a little bit of their story to someone else so that they could see, that person could see and understand that he spoke his language, right? You folks spoke my language. So I started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I kept coming to meetings. I had to grow, though. I had to grow. I didn't keep drink down from the first day of coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. Much more time sober than not sober since coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a good thing for me because alcohol will kill me. I know that it will kill me today, or it will, make me miserable until it kills me. And I don't need to go there today. I keep practicing the things that we read about in our reading today and the steps that come before. For me, coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, for me, I didn't recognize I was powerless over alcohol. When I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, I identified myself as an alcoholic because everybody else did. And I believed I was an alcoholic. I believed I was. And yet I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't fully understand what that meant. Which, for me, it's as simple as I'm an alcoholic. What makes me an alcoholic is that I'm powerless over alcohol. That's what differentiates us from 90% or 85% of the population when it comes to alcohol. I'm powerless over alcohol. So when I take a drink, when I took drinks, the drinks took me, and for a long time during my drinking career, always drank too much. Always drank too much, because I couldn't get enough. And I didn't know why that was. I come to learn that The reason is because when I take that drink, when alcoholics take a drink, the alcohol calls for more. Our body is different from the rest of the population in the way it doesn't process alcohol or does process alcohol. It's calling for more of the poison, really, that will kill me, and I think I want to drink as well. So for me, that drinking, and those drinking, when I drank, it wasn't, I for a long time, I always, at some point in that drinking early on, first few drinks, I got that glow or comfortable feeling, right? The promises that we read about being fulfilled for me back then by alcohol, right? Being fulfilled by the booze, that was a nice place to be, but I never could stay there. I was not one of those people that could say, there was no cruising altitude, because it was always going to be better in the next one. I was always thinking about the next one. So I always had too much. Always had too much. Coming to these meetings helped me when I reached the point in drinking for the first time in my life, because I had put it down several times in my life prior to coming to AA and stayed dry for periods of time. And somehow I could do that. Not that it was easy, a few sleepless nights and so forth, but I put it down. But there came a time when I could not put it down. When I was such a mess in the morning that I didn't want to drink anymore. But I knew by then that before the day's end, I would find a way to get the booze. So I needed to check myself into a detox to remove me really from physically being able to get the booze. That was the only way it was going to be. That was the first time in my life that happened. But coming to these meetings before that helped me. Step one came to me. That's how I view it, right? It came to me. So it's not an intellectual thing about what powerlessness is. Our book explains why I couldn't stop drinking. This is why. I'm sick. I have a sickness, alcoholism. So I can't stop drinking. And if I stop drinking, I can't stay stopped because I think it'll be different with the next one somehow. Insanity. And coming to AA when I first came, I was a very religious guy on the outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, very involved in religion. But that didn't work for me either. Not the religion's fault, but I'm an egocentric guy, right? I'm an egocentric guy. I'm thinking about me, and I think I know how to run my life, your life, and everybody else's life. But when I saw that I was powerless, what I had to do was change my way of thinking. I had to open my mind a little bit that something you folks had that I thought I had. I thought I had God and you guys didn't. That's how I thought. Like you had something, but it wasn't the right one. And guess what? That didn't serve me too well. So by opening my mind a little bit, and the first Big Book Step Study meeting I came to was right here, in this, because it fit my working circumstances at the time. I heard about Big Book Step Study meetings at other meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Somebody would, and that caught my attention. Because I really wanted to do the steps, and I had made my efforts to do the steps in the past, but I just didn't, it didn't work, right? Because I'm still trying to work it. I'm looking for the answers everywhere else but the big book. So I heard big book step study, and that caught my, it was like, wow, like steps, study, whatever, that caught my attention. Like I wanted something, I wanted part of that. So I started coming to the meetings here. And, I got a sponsor, and over time I did the work. Didn't have to take as long as it did, but it did. So I wrote a 4th step. I did my 3rd step with my sponsor. Wrote a 4th step. Shared my 5th step. And then 6 and 7, and it brings me to 8 and 9. And for me, I didn't have, I like to think I didn't have difficulty with being willing to make amends. Like I had a list, I made a list of all persons I had harmed. Most of those names on that list came from my 4th step. And why not? Why wouldn't it? Because so many people on my 4th step, if I knew you, you probably were on my 4th step, right? And so a lot of the people on my 4th step, I had harmed. And I don't recall receiving any instructions about having columns of people I was willing, now, not willing, never, and some people do, and that works. I just had a list, right? I had a list. And as I wrote the list, I was willing to make amends. That's how I felt inside. I was willing, not that I was ready to run out and call these people and try to fix things, but I knew I had to be willing. I had to be willing. But it does tell us in our reading, right? If I don't have that willingness, because as it comes time to make amends to certain individuals, that's not always, actually it's never, for me, never easy to make amends. I bring God with me because I invite God to be with me before I make the amends, when I'm writing the amends, when I review things with my sponsor. And so there was quite a number of people that I owed amends to. And some were a lot of amends. People that, I've been married twice. So, of course, I owed amends to both wives. One doesn't want anything to do with amends or me or anything else. And that's okay, because I made the demonstration. I did make the demonstration. And my first wife, who was the mother of 2 boys, we are friends, good friends, her and her family. I made amends to her, with her. And employers, people that I worked with for a long time, and so workmates, and a lot of people that I hurt by my actions, by my attitude, by my behavior. And so I made amends to most of those people, I do have a financial amends still left to do. I've done a lot of those, and I still have one that I need to do. So willingness, I show the willingness when I make it. Okay? When I make the amends, that's the demonstration, my willingness. So I need to not lie to myself about being willing. Right? If I don't make a demonstration, kind of like that 3rd step decision, it's all here until I follow through with some kind of action. In our book, and what we read this morning, it covers a lot of different kinds of situations, right, for amends, and the kinds of amends, the situations that amends may involve. And my amends all fell in those kind of categories, as I mentioned: employers, wives, ex-wives. The amends You know, I guess I thought, you know, the four-step was such a big deal, I thought, right before I got to the four-step, right, you know, we hear a lot about four, at least I heard a lot about four-step before ever doing one. Not here at these meetings so much, but other kinds of meetings. Just seemed like the four-step was such a big deal. And the real work doesn't stop, I guess. That's the bottom line, right? For me, the blessings that the promises that are listed after the ninth step here, which we hear read at different meetings sometimes, that's what happens, right? These promises come about as a result of doing the work up to this point, right? Doing work up to this point. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. You know what? I'm always amazed. Like, there's a lot of things that just amaze me. I just find myself amazed. And suddenly realize that God is doing for me what I could not do for myself. So as religious as I was, there was a lot of, Steve was blocking Steve, right? The inside stuff. Steve was blocking Steve from the sunlight of the Spirit, from God as I understand God. And it's this path, these steps, that are laid out for alcoholics, as those guys and gals did them, looking back on their experience when they wrote this, and looking back on their experience and putting in precisely what they did. So I can do the same, we can do the same. To do what? To have a spiritual experience. Doesn't claim to be the only path for spirituality, but it's the path that's in this book, so people like you and me who come to these meetings can practice this and grow. So the religious part of me, and again, it's not the religion, right? It's spirituality that these steps bring to me. And the amends is a huge part of that. It was and is a huge part of that. Fortunately, I don't find myself having to make amends as regularly as I would have had to in the past. Because, for a number of reasons, but that pause that I can use in the course of any day's activities, that pause before I open my mouth or take a certain action and invite God, that little pause is big. It helps me to not hurt people, hurt myself, most of the time. I'm not perfect, so yeah, it still happens. But the eye-opening experience for me, the spiritual eye-opening experience for me in the amends was amazing. You know, to sit ex-father-in-law on this side of the table and me on this side, eyeball to eyeball, and being able to, that experience comes to my mind because for the first time in my life, after probably 25-year relationship with this person as a fellow member of the religion I was active in, as my stepfather-in-law, I guess I can call him, that's what he was, my wife's stepfather. I was able to look at him and realize that he was just a nice guy. He was just a nice guy. And I had all this judgment and resentment against him all the time. And I was able to see, I began to see people as people, right? Human beings with feelings and thoughts, and not just as bodies, as other things. No, people, relationships. So, was it work? Is it work? It's work. It's work. Is it worth it? Absolutely. I have to do this. I had to and have to do this to rightly relate with people, which helps me I need to rightly relate with God as I understand God and people. It's just, those can't be separated from me. Those can't be separated. That's how it is to me. And I don't think it was in our reading today. I was paying attention as much as I could. But, I never, but in our book it talks about that, or maybe it's the 12 and 12, that I just never was able to form a union or a relationship, true relationship with another human being. Really. That's how most of my life was. Thing is, I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that. And this process brings me to an awareness of that. Brings me awareness. So what comes as a result of that? What is a result of that for me? Well, what it says in that 12 step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. That's the purpose of the steps. To wake me up spiritually. And nullify, I guess, not nullify, fill the need that I always had for relationships with people and with God. That need that was always there, that I tried to fill in a variety of ways: religion, booze, things, relationships, women, that kind of thing, trying to fill those things. Doesn't mean those things that I could easily go home and eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's today. Right? Not a problem, not a problem. So I'm not going to buy a pint of Ben & Jerry's because I know what will happen. Right? It's not a great idea. But I will do that. I'll look at half the pint as I'm getting down there and I'll think, we probably could stop now. Right? This is just the truth. And then I'm thinking, one more tablespoon full. Put that in. Then I look and it's like, well, you don't want to just save less than half a pint, right? That's me. So it's gone. And if I had two and I open another, that would be gone. So I know there's those things that I can fall into, I guess, right? I need to be on God. It's much better to have a pint of Ben & Jerry's than it is to have a pint of some kind of vodka. That's a fact. So I cut myself enough slack to realize I'm not killing myself in that way, right? But I also see that I can be very obsessive and compulsive about a lot of things. Today I have a little more balance in my life because I'm learning to come within with my higher power. And I have a good life, simple. I like simple. And live alone in my apartment, have my 2 sons, 5 grandkids, the bomb, love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Plan to retire next year, that's awesome. I won't be living high off the hog, but I should be comfortable, okay, right, okay. As long as I keep God in my life and I do the things on a daily basis that I do now, or the kind of things, doesn't mean that those things won't change. Because I'm flexible enough today to be able to let myself say, okay, well, maybe you want to introduce this, whatever it might be, along a spiritual line that will just open up my thinking, that's it. And being content most of the time. So, if I eat a bag of chips and the Ben & Jerry's a little later today, it's Saturday, right? It's Saturday. Good day to eat Ben & Jerry's and chips. I don't know what's going to happen this afternoon because I don't have any plans. I might go to the beach, circle of friends, who knows. Anyways, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to let it go, and thanks for letting me share this morning.